I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you about this issue. Well, I guess I'm known up here, or infamously known up here, for speaking out against some of the things that Bob Keller had to say. And can you hear? Okay.
Oh, much better.
All right, so my group decided to speak out against Bob Keller primarily because we felt, he may not be a racist. He certainly sounded like one. It's kind of hard to parse every syllable to see exactly what he was trying to say. It really doesn't matter that much to me because...
You do have to hold it right up to your mouth.
Okay, now, all right.
Yeah.
All the time.
What he said was very divisive. It didn't do anything to lead us in a positive direction on how to solve a problem that we all universally agree exists. And I felt that what he said actually took away from that effort, and I think that I'm sort of proven out in what sort of happened up here when we came up to speak. I mean, especially the second time when we actually did speak at the city council meeting. We came up and we tried to hold a press conference for about a half an hour, and a bunch of people were just trying to scream us down. They didn't want to hear what we had to say. They didn't want us coming up here and speaking on this issue. It's a national issue. It's something that really needs to be addressed on a national basis, and that's something that I'm going to talk about a little bit tonight. I want to move on past the Bob Keller issue, but I'm just going to mention a couple of things about it since that's how you found out about me. All right, so when Bob Keller spoke at that Minuteman rally up here a few weeks ago, and by the way, they're having another rally to Save Our State People, which, by the way, is known as a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. They're having another rally up here on Saturday, I believe at 11 o'clock or something like that. My group, which is the Full Rights for Immigrants Coalition in association with Churla and a few other of the bigger immigrant advocacy organizations, decided that we didn't want that to just be another one-sided argument. So a lot of us, I think over 100 people are coming up here on Saturday, along with several people from your community. And we're gonna stand side by side with those people. There's a flyer if anybody is interested to find out more about it. I brought some flyers up. And you're gonna hear some people talk about this issue. Hopefully they're even smarter than I am and can really explain exactly why the Save Our State people and the Minutemen are not really doing anything to solve the problem, and why the actual solution to the problem is something called comprehensive immigration reform, which is what I'm basically here to talk about tonight. Before I get into it, just to finish off on Bob Keller. All right, when he started talking, because I carefully watched the whole transcript or the whole video because I knew that I would have to speak about it and I wanted to really know what I was talking about. And so I didn't just watch the 2 seconds where he said he was a proud racist or whatever. I watched it from the beginning. And he came up and he said, you know what, I've been listening to all you speakers because several people evidently spoke before he spoke. And they said, and he basically said, I agree with everything that you're saying, you're right on, which is what he said. Now, I was not there. I don't know what everybody said before he came up there. I do know that there was somebody from the Baptist church or something came up and gave an invocation before Bob Keller spoke. And in the invocation, he said something to the effect of, well, all these illegals, they're here, they're from the devil, and they're coming from hell, and they got to be sent back straight to hell. All right, now, if Bob Keller is agreeing with that, then I think he's got a bigger problem than just saying he's a proud racist. He's got some other issues that he's got to deal with. He said something else that I do want to talk about. One of the first things that he said is if we didn't have illegals in the state of California, we wouldn't have a budget deficit. That's what he said. I mean, that's what the man said. I'm here to tell you that I'm on top of this issue all the time. I've written papers about this issue. I've spoken at legal symposiums about this issue, and the man doesn't know anything about immigration reform or what the immigration situation really is. Just recently, a friend of mine, Professor Raul Hinojosa Ojeda from UCLA, did a study in conjunction with the Immigration Policy Center in Washington, D.C. The study basically looked at what happened during the IRCA time, which was the last immigration reform that Ronald Reagan, by the way, lobbied for and signed back in 1986. All right, he took the model of what actually happened after that amnesty, and that one was kind of an amnesty, and I'll explain the difference a little bit later. But basically what had happened was he took the model, okay, this is what happened to immigrants once they became legalized and they were able to come out of the shadows and participate as a full-fledged legal person in the system, be it as a legal resident or eventually as a citizen. And taking the actual data that he could prove was actually used back in the 80s, he translated that to what would happen over the next 10 years should we be able to pass immigration reform this year. In a nutshell, what his findings showed was that if we were to pass CIR, Comprehensive Immigration Reform, then over the next 10 years, the gross domestic product, the amount of goods that we produce and pay for in this country, would go up by $1.5 trillion over the next 10 years, about $150 billion a year. He also calculated that if we were to go the other extreme route and try and deport everybody, the 12 million or whatever it is that's here illegally, what would happen to our economy? And he figured out that that would actually cost the economy about $2.6 trillion over that same 10-year period. So the actual difference between deporting everybody or legalizing them and allowing them to fully participate as, pay their taxes, whatever they're going to do, is over $4 trillion over the next 10 years. So it's a significant amount of money. Another friend of mine, who's a professor at USC, and I went to USC, his name is Manny Pasteur, Dr. Manuel Pasteur, and he did a different study. He did a study strictly about the state of California. And he said, well, what would happen if we were to have comprehensive immigration reform on the state of California's finances? It was a little bit of a different type of study, but bottom line, his numbers were also done in a similar way using the IRCA model from 1986, and he calculated that the state of California would have an additional $16 billion a year, or I guess $160 billion over 10 years in additional gross state product. So there's a tremendous amount of money in an economic stimulus that would happen should we pass comprehensive immigration reform, as opposed to just leaving things as they are, the status quo, and especially versus what we would do if we actually deported everybody, which is really not what we're doing. Okay, so enough about Bob Keller. We could all agree that he made some unfortunate comments, to put it mildly, and let's hope that he just becomes a footnote in the history of racism in this country, and we can move on. All right. Up here you have the Santa Clarita Independent Minutemen. A gentleman by the name of Roger Gitlan is up here, and he started that group. And he recently wrote an op-ed for your newspaper up here, The Signal. And
alleged newspaper.
He basically called me two things that are, he said a lot of things that were blatantly wrong. But there's two things that he said about me that kind of leads me into the discussion that I want to talk about tonight. He said, first of all, I was a hired gun for the Civil Rights for Immigrants Coalition, and that's not true. I'm just a member of the coalition. There's a lot of really concerned citizens, and a lot of them are immigrants, but a lot of them are, white American people such as myself. He sort of tried to make it sound like, they hired me to, I don't know what he was trying to say, but anyway, it's wrong.